I guess in summer and stuff going around.
John is here. I just saw him.
I'm a punctual man. We're going to get started right now. So maybe they'll hear the gavel. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call our Committee of the Whole meeting to order. First off, we're going to begin with a Pledge of Allegiance followed by a moment of silence. So if you can please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on our agenda is public comment. Folks who wish to speak, you'll have 3 minutes to do so. I do ask if you are going to speak that you complete the form that's on the tablet in the hallway. Do we have any members of the public who wishes to speak today? Okay, seeing none. Next, we're going to go under Educational and Student Services. We have a presentation by Ms. Falk, the District Wellness and Farm to School Director for that program. So, I believe you have a presentation that will be pulled up.
Yes, I do. Well, hello everyone. Happy Wellness Wednesday.
That's later.
It's all food related.
That's wellness too.
First slide starts with recall.
Everything today just about is themed around food because of so.
Well, I'll kind of get started. Those of you that don't know me, my name is Caitlin Falk, and I am your District Wellness Manager. I'm here today to provide some year 2 updates on the WIS grant that we have, the Whole School, Whole Community, Whole Child grant. So quickly wanted to remind you of some of the primary goals of this grant. You'll see on the screen. When I was here last year, I presented on the background of the grant, so just quickly going through that for you. The main goals are to implement all aspects of a comprehensive school physical activity program. That's a CSPAP, and that's a multi-pronged approach for increasing physical activity in the schools. To implement our school wellness policy, which is the primary objective of the District Wellness Council. To improve the nutrition environment and services during the school day through a collaboration with METS. Improving the nutrition environment and physical activity opportunities in our out-of-school time programs, after-school clubs, athletics, summer programming, and then improving those services and support for students with chronic health conditions. So if you remember, last year we conducted the School Health Index, which is the CDC's framework for assessing school health. And then we collaborated with the PIT evaluation team to identify our areas for opportunity, which are listed here on the slide. We had plenty of strengths, which I shared last year, but now that we're in the work of the grant, we're working on those room for growth. So as you can see, we had plenty of areas for growth, but we wanted to be strategic and intentional with where we started. So the first thing that we did and what was the main focus of this past year is to revitalize our District Wellness Council. Per the District Wellness Policy, that is a group that meets quarterly, and the representatives include a school representative, various administrators, a health and PE teacher, mental health specialist, food service rep, and a parent. And then we also have some community members and a board member, Ms. Graff. We split those groups of people into various subcommittees, and the subcommittees were identified from this list. So I pulled that list back up again, and we asked our subcommittee to vote on all these areas over the summer. Which areas did they think were the top 5 most important areas to start with? And the highlighted portions are what the council voted on. So those areas were moved into subcommittees where we started getting our work done. So each of the subcommittees have created an action plan with the long-term aim to achieve the policy goal. However, some of them will be a years-long process. So I wanted to inform you both of the policy goal, which is on the top of each slide, and then the sub-goal that we're focusing on this year that each subcommittee hopes to accomplish before the end of June. So for community engagement, the policy goal is to bring community groups into the schools to meet the wellness needs of our students, staff, and families. And through the Community Schools Initiative, we have a great framework for engaging our community, but there is room for fusion with health promotion. The subcommittee created a community resource guide, it's in draft form right now, that really provides tips and tricks for schools and how they can bring those community partners into the school, and it includes a list of community partners, and these community partners could come as after-school program providers, assemblies, family engagement events, presentations, things like that. So that is in draft form with the goal to finalize it at the end of the year and share it amongst staff at the beginning of next school year. Our next committee is our Smart Snacks Committee, and we recognize that food has a direct effect on behavior and learning. So this was voted as one of the policies that we really want to work on, that all food served, sold, and offered to our students meets the USDA Smart Snack Guidelines. And Smart Snacks is a term used to describe food that's considered healthy by the USDA. These are the metrics here on the slide. While METS meets all of these guidelines in their school meals, we still have a variety of areas for growth within each school. Attendance initiatives, classroom incentives, individual teacher rewards that are sugary snacks, fast food, that not only is against this policy, it can also be considered a competitive food against the National School Lunch Program, which can put us at potential for fines. So this is definitely a subcommittee that has a lot of work to do. They have focused on shifting our PBIS rewards to meet all smart snacks guidelines, but like I said, a lot of this food usage is happening outside of those structured events, and teachers are in violation of this policy, but that's why we want to focus on educating our staff and community. I don't think a lot of people are aware of the policy, so our goal is to educate all staff on the wellness policy next school year. The next category is smarter lunchrooms. So this is really spearheaded by METS. The policy goal here is that students have enough time to eat. The policy says that we need at least 10 minutes to eat breakfast and 20 minutes to eat lunch from the time they receive their meals till the time the bell rings. And so this can be achieved by faster lunch lines or longer lunches. And so the METS team has been working very hard to implement smarter lunchroom techniques which are low to no cost solutions for changing the framework of how lunch is served, how it is offered to students, making food more promotional and attractive. And so METS has been working hard on that. They're going to share a report with us at the end of the year that will look at, if METS has done everything that they can do. Do we need to make lunch times longer? Do we need to stagger classes coming down to lunch so that students really get the 20 minutes to eat? The next category is recess. This really only affects our elementary schools, but elementary schools are supposed to offer 15 minutes of recess on all days during the school year, regardless of weather, which would include an indoor recess. And physical activity cannot be taken away as punishment, including making up extra work. So our recess subcommittee is focused on creating a video that explains the recess policy, explains the why behind this recess policy, and explains alternative methods for classroom management so that teachers don't rely on taking away recess as punishment. And then they're also creating a recess book that will come up with games and activities that can be used during the winter months where students might have to do recess indoors. The next subcommittee is our Health Communication Subcommittee, and this is a subcommittee that really looks at promoting not only wellness wins, but general health promotion in our schools and community. So this includes the annual notification of our wellness policy, and general health promotion, healthy eating, and physical activity to parents, families, and general community. All of our students are attached to a family and are attached to our community. So if we have a healthier Erie, that only positively impacts our schools. We've created great framework for the how we communicate, why we communicate, but we're going to focus on the next couple months who else we can communicate with. So maybe partnering with the Erie County Health Department, partnering with Erie News to spread our message to a wider audience. The next subcommittee is the Classroom Physical Activity Subcommittee. We know that movement matters for attendance and behavior and course performance, and so we want to bring physical activity into the classroom. But the subcommittee discussed and kind of decided that Brain Boost breaks, which can be very important, they do take away time from instruction. So the focus here is to actually infuse physical activity into the classwork so it's not taking away from instruction time. And so our education department is really spearheading that. We're starting with ELA and we're looking for natural opportunities for movement within the curriculum. In the future, we can expand to other curricula, but this is where we're starting. And then our last subcommittee is chronic health conditions. And the focus here is that all staff have training in a variety of chronic health conditions that students might have. Right now, this year, we're focused on open airways training, which is an asthma training, but there is, in the future, we would like to have training for diabetes, food allergies, and more. So look for that coming in the future. And then just some other wellness wins throughout the year. We have been awarded several grants. We're up to about $15,000 in grant money. That is really supporting fruit and vegetable programming at each of our schools. Our wellness programming is expanding. Right now it's step challenges, but we do have over 300 plus employees engaged in that. Really looking at increased opportunities for physical activity during the school day with our Anchor, our elementary after school program, family engagement events, Brain Boost boot camps, and a Movement Matters program that looks at behavior as an intervention, movement as an intervention for students with behavioral issues. And then lastly, really looking at increased health promotion. Health promotion communication. So I've created the Employee Wellness Newsletter this year that goes out once a month, and our weekly Wellness Wednesday videos, which I hope you are all tuning into and sharing. Those are fun videos that highlight what's going on in our schools and community. And then the last thing I want to leave you with is how can you engage in this work? One, you are welcome to participate in our district step challenges. You could create a team that's the board and really go against our other schools, or you could join a school and support them. Each pick a school that you want to sponsor and be a part of. Feel free to attend any wellness focused events. I know Ms. Graff attends our district wellness council meeting, so if anyone else wanted to pop in or see what wellness is all about, we'd love to have you. And then lastly, remember that school wellness is foundational for course performance, attendance, and behavior. So as you are making other policy decisions that affect our school, that you remember that school wellness can benefit all. That is all from me. Thank you so much for your time, and be well, Erie.
Thank you, Ms. Falk. So we appreciate the presentation, and also, if you don't mind, I don't know if there's any questions that if you have. Are there any questions for Mr. Nichols?
I have a question.
Yeah.
You had those requirements for what we offer and had a sugar limitation based on weight. Where would that put like sodas? Do we serve soda at all, or?
We don't serve there's no vending machines, and it's not served through METS, but some soda is given away as classroom incentives, which would be a violation of the policy since that is high in sugar.
Do we serve juices?
Yes, there are juices served.
But they're meeting this requirement of under.
Everything that METS provides meets the Smart Snacks guidelines, so they're very compliant. Any other questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
So I have mobility issues, constraints. And I guess when you mentioned the step challenge, I never thought, like, are there alternatives to step challenges?
Yeah, so Step Challenge is probably a bad title because that's where it started, but we do have a physical activity conversion chart, so there is all different kinds of physical activity that converts to steps. So people turn in their steps each week, but they could choose to do a different activity that, if they did an hour of this, that counts as 3,000 steps, or a half hour of that counts as 500 steps, and they can add it all together. So definitely maybe a rebranding is in need, but it is inclusive.
Cool. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Doreen, who will be presenting on the Farm to School project. Or do we have alternative presenters? Okay.
So Doreen is supposed to be presenting virtually. Do we have her meet up?
Don, do we have her on the Zoom call? Okay.
Thank you. I was muted there for a while. I know that wasn't on purpose. Can everyone hear me
Sure
okay?
can, loud and clear.
Oh, I can't hear you. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you perfectly.
Oh, great. Thank you. Okay. So my name is Doreen Petrie, and good evening. Thank you for giving us this time. I am the project manager of Erie Farm to School. It's a volunteer group that works entirely with the Erie School District, manages the 14 school gardens and related programming. So I know many of you for the good part of 25 years, but for those of you I have not had the opportunity to meet, I was a high school and college science teacher for 40 years, 19 of those at Collegiate Academy. I retired from the district in 2019, and during my tenure, I've worked on environmental projects, most recently concentrating on school gardens. So if you take a moment to read our vision, you probably can see that it sets up well with the new integrated science standards. And then if you look at our mission, so I'm just going to move us aside. I'm not sure if you see that, it seems to be blocking out some of the words. It really,
Oh,
our mission really
we can see the
focuses
whole thing on
on
our
healthy
screen.
eating and healthy lifestyles. And our current staff is myself and Stephanie Seiner, who I'll introduce in a moment. You see our contact information. We have Erie School District emails. Okay, I don't seem to be able to advance my slides, and I don't know why. I don't know, is Don here? I might need his help. I can't advance the slide
We're
on
taking a
my
look.
computer.
Deanna, are you able to, does that work at all? No?
Doreen,
I can't
if,
hear you.
Doreen, if you,
yeah.
you stop sharing your screen, I could put the PowerPoint up on my end, and then I'll control it.
That would be great.
Okay.
Thanks, Don.
Okay, next slide, please. So here are some, oops, please go back one. So we have 14 school gardens and after-school clubs at every garden. In the 10 elementary gardens, they meet for 6 weeks in the fall and 6 weeks in the spring. The 3 middle school garden clubs meet for four-week sessions, along with gardening and all that involves. We have a culinary segment, and we also have an indoor growing segment. At Collegiate, we meet for 8 weeks in the fall and 8 weeks in the spring, after school again with their club. And at Erie High, we don't have a specific garden there that we really attend to, but we do a lot of projects with the landscape management kids. They come and help us with projects, we consult with them, so we have a really good relationship with all 14 schools. All schools have tables and benches. Multiple groups of students use the gardens, not just for gardening, not just for science types of lessons, but They can go out and do anything, reading, I was out at the Piper Burley Garden one time and a group was coming by from Language Arts and they were doing a sensory section, and what a perfect place to use the garden. We have master gardeners and other volunteers that teach in our after-school clubs. Over the years, for the past 10 and actually 15 years, we've been awarded a lot of grants and donations, almost $600,000 just for gardening. And just as a side note, before I concentrated on school gardens, I did energy audits with the district, cleanups, watershed education, and recycling programs, over $200,000 in grants. So we're over $800,000 in the years that I've been involved with the school district. It's really hard to quantify how many people we have touched. It's really impossible because we don't know everybody that uses the gardens, but we'd like to increase that. And so you see, we've touched students, children, and adults, and we have a wide network of community partners that we'll talk about in a little bit. In 2020, we closed the schools and closed the gardens, so only the adults that were working in the gardens could access them. That gave us the opportunity to actually weigh the produce that we were producing. And most of that produce at that time went to the families that came to pick up meals at our selected schools. But we donate to many, many nonprofits and organizations. Pay What You Can Farm Stands, Sacred Heart Food Bank, Emmaus, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure we're over 2,000 pounds a year now because we've added garden beds since 2020. So in the statement at the bottom, we really look at a pathway. We want to engage students from pre-K to grade 12 in an agri-culinary pathway, agriculture, and then how do you prepare the food? How do you consume it? How do you enjoy it? And we'd like to really increase what we've discovered and what we've laid down the foundation for. Next slide, please. So here's the big question. Stephanie and I will not be here forever. And so we're looking at sustainability. And we're at a crossroads at this point in time. We've really done what we can, but we'd love to have a cooperation with the district. And what does the district feel they can do with this program, with us? How can we move forward? How can we even improve it and really realize its potential? Next slide, please. We've been recognized in many publications, news stories. Just to highlight one of them, the Pennsylvania Secretary of Agriculture has visited our school gardens 3 times. And I've presented in Harrisburg to different committees. And he goes around the state and he talks about 2 programs. One is an elementary school that has an agriculture theme in Philadelphia. And the other one is Erie Farm to School in the Erie School District. And he said to me at one point, so many school districts strive to achieve what you have accomplished. And so I'm almost going to take a bet that we're the only school district in the state that has gardens at every school and related programming. Next slide, please. Okay, so I've given you the basic school gardens clubs that we have, but we do a lot of special programs and we try to be creative on how we can look at other curricular areas. I'll give you a moment to read about our math lessons. We did this in the fall of 2023, and 5 Erie School District teachers designed 1 lesson for each grade level in September to use peppers, our Harvest of the Month item, and matched up what they were teaching in math in September. And it was a blast. You see Lori Hogan, she's one of our retired teachers, over 30 years in the district, mostly at Connell Elementary. But if you notice the picture in the top left-hand corner, those are pre-K kids. And as they were sorting colors of peppers and counting them, she's laying them out in the form of a bar graph. And then she's doing addition with second graders. And each of these grade levels, the teachers developed worksheets where the kids would go back to their classroom with the data that they had collected and manipulate it according to the level that they were being taught and learning at that time. I just want to show you in the bottom right-hand corner that young man with a meter stick. Here's what's so cool about learning in the gardens. First of all, you're outside, you're breathing fresh air. I'm such a strong proponent of outdoor education. So Lori and I were in the garden, and I said, the kids are going to come out and measure these garden beds, fifth graders from Grover. Should we use the metric system or should we use the English system, which is also on the back of the meter stick? And she said, I don't know. So Denise Monty brought her kids out and we asked Denise and she said, I don't know. They really haven't measured. So somebody said, let's ask the kids and let them vote. So they voted on inches and feet, of course, because that's what they're familiar with. But we ran into some problems because when you go to measure the depth, or I should say the height of the boards, they had rotted at the bottom and everyone was getting different values. So we had to say to them, hey, it originally was an 8-inch board and we fibbed a little bit because boards really aren't what they say they are once they cut them. But it was such a problem solving, critical thinking, putting our heads together. And when we debriefed in the spring of 2024, we got the teachers together and said, what worked with this, what didn't? The common denominator that we found was measurement, because these teachers went back through the entire school year, during the entire school year, and referenced this one math garden activity and said, remember when we were in the gardens and we measured this, or we counted this, or we grouped this? And they used that concept to relate to different topics that they were covering throughout the year. So we do want to follow up on that. We just piloted one lesson at one school for each of these. There's so much to do with this. Next slide, please. One other special topic that we do, one activity, is home gardens. So we identify a handful of students at the middle school garden clubs who are really interested in gardening and say to them, would you like to have a garden in your backyard? Now, we've already installed 8 gardens. We will install 6 more in April of May this year. And they take the lead on it. The kids take the lead. They know what foods their families like to eat. They know how to plant the plants. We have a design meeting with their family. Then we set an installation date, and it's so much fun because brothers, sisters, grandparents, at one of the houses, the grandparents shoveled 2 yards of soil into the garden beds. It was so awesome. They were so fit. They were like my age. I was really excited. And they also have neighbors coming in. Hey, what's going on over here? But what is so rewarding is the families are so, so grateful. This is through DEP grants. I think we can get these for a very long time. Those are some of the special projects we do. There are many more. You will receive a packet of our full presentation that gives you many other examples of special projects that we did. I've just given you a couple. Next slide, please. So I'd like to introduce Stephanie Seiner. She's my partner. Couldn't do it without her. We're a great team. She is a fabulous writer. She's also our garden expert, and she's going to talk about what we do in the community and what the community does for us.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. And I'm going to be really brief and just talk about how this project has impacted our wider community. I've been with Farm to School for 9 years and have really seen how it has brought Erie's Public Schools into our local food system community, which includes farmers, home gardeners, cooks, markets. Like, people are really excited about making sure Erie has quality food and that we're as involved in that food as we want to be. We work with a lot of different community partners for our programs. We've had folks come in for career fairs. We've taken students on field trips to all different types of sites. We've had entrepreneurs come in and talk about how they started their food business. We've had nonprofits talk about food access and food sovereignty and all of the issues that we know are really important to our families. And, Yeah, so this work has really helped to create reciprocal relationships that then allow us, when we have resources like funding, or if we have extra seeds, if we have the opportunity for like a business to connect with a group of students they want to meet, we just work to keep those relationships beneficial for our schools and our students, and also for our community partners. And thanks. And one of these I wanted to highlight for you tonight is with Groundwork Erie, which is a local nonprofit focused on environmental justice through youth and young adult development. When they were considering starting in Erie, there were folks from the EPA, the National Park Service, and the National Groundwork Trust came to Erie to see who was interested in this kind of work. And we met them at the Piper Burley School Garden. They got to see what was going on. This was in 2019. They invited Doreen and I to be on their steering committee and really bring the perspective of Erie's public schools and the needs of our students to what they were working on with their plan, and seeing if this was feasible in Erie. And if you fast forward to 2025, we now have students from our schools who are employed in the summer through Groundwork. They make a really good hourly wage. They get to then work at the schools in the gardens, taking care of the plants when we don't have our our clubs and our teachers there. And then they harvest the food, and it goes back to the community through the pathways that Doreen talked about. And so through this sustained partnership of us representing the schools and the gardens and the needs of our students, then we've been able to see that come to fruition with actual employment opportunities and more food distribution throughout our community. And I'm going to introduce Deanna, who's been working with us and helping us with a lot of things.
Hi, everybody. So I need to do a little disclaimer that you've known me so far as the WISC representative through the Department of Health for the grant work that Caitlin's working on. But I am not here tonight in that role. So I'm not here as a spokesperson, representative from the Pennsylvania Department of Health. In August, Doreen and Steph brought me on to spend the school year also consulting with them. So I've been doing, two roles here with your district over the course of this school year. So they brought me on to consult with them in terms of the sustainability of the program, to help them evaluate how Erie Farm to School has been doing in terms of school wellness work in general, best practices, just to kind of plan for what the future might look like. And, to do that, one of the first steps in planning is to evaluate how you're doing. And so one of the things that we looked at there was to, over the course of the school year, our goals were to evaluate your district's compliance with farm to school policies in your wellness policy. So if you look at your district wellness policy, there is a section that talks about farm to school. And so we wanted to see how was Erie Farm to School meeting the needs of the section in your wellness policy. We also wanted to then take a look at, in addition to what's in your policy, what are best practices? So how is Erie Farm to School meeting farm to school best practices? And then, like I said, really try to help them plan for the program sustainability. So what we've done so far is take a look at those school health index results that Caitlin completed as part of the Department of Health grant. So the school health index, if you remember, measures best practices in school wellness. And there is a section in there, again, about farm to school. So we took a look at that. We also took a look at the wellness policy work that Caitlin did, making sure, asking survey questions of how folks were actually meeting the wellness policy. There is a tool, the Pennsylvania Farm to School Network's Farm to School Program Assessment, and that measures how school districts are doing in terms of the cafeteria, the classroom, the community, and then integration and staying power. We took a look at that. And then we actually interviewed some staff members that have been involved in the program. Like Doreen had said, a lot of information is in your packet for you to take home, but I just wanted to highlight two things. The first part above there is the question that you see when you look at the school health index. So those are best practices in farm to school. So how is your district doing best practice wise? The bottom section there is how is your district doing meeting the wellness policies? That is pulled directly from your wellness policy. If you take a look, the wellness policy is very, very close to meeting all of the best practices. Your wellness policy, I think I've said this to you guys before, but your wellness policy is one of the best I've ever seen. And so in terms of making a district wellness policy, you have a lot of those best practices already in there. And so it was a matter just of seeing, again, how are we doing actually meeting those goals that you say are in your policy, and really how is Erie Farm to School doing? And if you recall back to Doreen and Steph's presentation before me, you can see there, and from Caitlin's perspective, we already know that a lot of local and regional products are incorporated into your school meal program. Max is going to probably touch on this as well. So they're doing a great job there. We have messages reinforced throughout the learning environment in terms of those math lessons, but as Doreen said, there's always room to grow. And now with Caitlin really stepping in and helping with Farm to School, that has really gone a lot further too. Every school has a school garden, which again, as Doreen said, is amazing in Pennsylvania. Doreen and Steph didn't mention this, but it's in your packet about the field trips that they do. Your kids have access to Farm to School field trips, and that has even turned into a summer camp that they created this past summer, which if you haven't heard of it yet, honest to God, it sounds like the most amazing thing, and I wish they would make one for adults because I would do it in a heartbeat. And then Doreen and Steph have made sure to include a lot of, to start a lot of special events for your community. And then they've also been invited into special events that already exist, really highlighting Farm to School. So in terms of what you're doing now, Erie Farm to School is doing an incredible job helping the district meet best practices and the wellness policy. And so next steps really for us are just to figure out the sustainability of the program. And then we are back to Doreen.
Thank you, Steph and Deanna. I'll give you a moment to read some of these quotes. I'd like to end on this slide. So another area I'd like just to mention is we also have a lot of art in the gardens. If you had a chance to attend the Erie High Gala, the mural in the Erie High hallway of the Beehive, that was one of our projects. The fence murals, we have garden signs, etc. So we're kind of going into many different curricular areas, and the teachers we work with, I can't say enough about Erie School District teachers. So here, I'd like to go back to my original question. Where do we go from here? How can the district, if you're willing to, build upon, leverage, advertise the uniqueness of this program? And it's taken us 15 years to create it. And we have the infrastructure, we have the beginning of the programming. We're teaching kids about the economic, nutritional, environmental, and social benefits of growing healthy food, and it can really change your lives. And I think this type of programming, because it's such a pervasive initiative, could be a great marketing tool. Can you imagine advertising the Erie School District as having a school garden at every school, and how it is represented in other areas within the school curriculum, activities, etc. We're going to be meeting with the health teachers. Where does it fit? So in summary, I am inviting everyone at this meeting to visit a school garden, to participate in one of our clubs. We're starting in April for the spring session. But most importantly, meet with Stephanie and me to learn about the full scope of this initiative. You only have a snapshot and its future potential. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Do we have any questions? Yeah, Mr. Harkins.
I didn't realize it had been 15 years, Doreen, but I've always been a supporter of you and what you've done.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. You have to speak
got the
really
button
loudly.
pushed.
I apologize.
I don't want to yell. I've always been a supporter of what you did, and your mention that it was 15 years ago just stuns me, but that's the way life is these days for me. Where can we find another Doreen?
Well,
It's-
that's the big search question, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems
Because
to me
once
that
Stephanie and
what
I
happened was the seed-
retire,
you planted the seed and it grew into what it is, but it wasn't like we created the program and found you or you applied for it. It originated from your enthusiasm and your devotion to it. So I'm all in favor of us trying to find a way to not lose momentum and keep things growing. So I guess I'd ask of the administration if they could help us find a way to explore how to do that. But we've been very fortunate to have you and the people, your team, and Caitlin coming in, and it all melts together very nicely. So I, for one, and I'm sure many of the rest of us want to do what we can to keep the momentum going.
thank you, John. You have been a strong supporter of ours from day one. I really appreciate that.
Well, you get the credit though, and I just would ask Brian if he could delegate this to someone or to find a way for us to keep this momentum going, keep it alive. And, again, we have to find another such as you, Doreen.
Just, Mr. Harkins, I just want to weigh in. We've been talking to this group here for a couple months now about the potential for doing this. It's one of the things we'll be bringing the board as part of the budget process this fall, or this spring.
Mr. Nichols.
On the on the home gardens that have been put in, I see you had done 4 in 2021. I was curious if any of them are still being cultivated now. Are they?
That is a great question. We have not, we also have with us Tess Frawley. She is the owner of Eat Your Yard Company, and she does the designing and the really working with the families. She has done some minimal follow-up, but not long-term. Again, that's another thing we really need to work on. With 2 of us on staff, there are some things that need to be expanded, need to be done more efficiently, and that is definitely something we need to work on.
Because that's a great way to continue it in the summertime, if, in a neighborhood, if they have a house with a garden. That is the peak growing season, so I just thought that was a great idea you've had, and I know it's still in a pilot program. I hope you can keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you. We do a lot in the summer. Even though school's not in session, we have a definite supply chain of where our produce goes. Always our students and our families first. Neighbors that walk by, we invite them in, but we donate to a number of local nonprofits, mostly the Pay What You Can farm stand, which Stephanie started, and there are 4 of them within the city, and we donate to those. So yes, we keep things going in the summer.
Mr. Sharif.
Just a comment. I really appreciate what you all do. I know I've been to a couple of the gardens in the summertime, and it's always exciting to see the kids. Like, especially, like, I know they give them like seeds. I know my kids brought up like tomatoes, strawberries, and doing the garden at home. And I've ran into Stephanie a couple of times at community gardening and different things. So I think this is really exciting that all our schools have it, and it's not just planting, but it's a lot of educational and a lot of beneficial to our kids. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Gillespie.
I want to thank you for the home gardens as well. As I was looking at these, I realized that my neighbors participate in this 2 houses down. The grandparents that you spoke of who are very active, they're also very active in the neighborhood, and they mentioned this to me as they were doing it. So it brings community awareness as well. So, and they're very active grandparents. They do a lot for that family. So thank you for all you do for the home families as well.
Thank you. I think it's a very expandable program. It's not that expensive. If we could find additional funding from another source, in addition to the DEP, we could definitely make it bigger.
Ms. Devlin.
Dr. Brenneman, thanks, and I apologize for my tardiness. So Doreen, I just caught the end, but I do want to say on the Pay What You Can market, we have one of those on East Avenue, of course, at the old Wayne School building there, and Stephanie has been great getting that up and running. So for those of you on the board who don't know what that is, it's essentially this produce that comes and is given away, and you pay what you can, So it does huge benefit in the community, and Also, on the funding topic, perhaps working with some of the nonprofits who are benefiting from that. I know, we are at the Hammond Health Foundation, so there might be some funding there as well if that produce is really feeding those markets. So I'd be happy to be in that conversation too. So thank you both for all your work.
Thank you, Ms.
Yes,
Devlin.
thank you.
And Ms. Amatangelo.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I knew that the programming you all were doing was really impressive, but I had no idea the expansion and just how many people you're touching so often. And I was wondering if there is, and I see the social media links on the presentation, but I was wondering if you guys have promotional information that I might be able to get a hold of and give to some of our local shops that I live near that are constantly doing things with the district and are very interested in getting involved and hearing some of the success stories.
We do have promotional materials. We'd love to meet with you and just become aware of specifically where you want the promotional materials to go, because we always focus on our target audiences. And we've created a lot of different pieces of promotional materials. We actually have Hannah Rhodes from LEAF, the Lake Erie Arboretum at Frontier Park. She's our media specialist right now, and she is wonderful in helping us. Stephanie does a lot of work for us in that respect too. So yes, that definitely is a possibility, and we'd love to expand that area.
Okay, I'll reach out. Thank you so much.
I'll just say that, I'm a farm boy. I grew up on farms and ranches. I love this. When I got out of the Army, one of the first things I did was turn half my yard into a giant garden. It was probably more like a mini farm. There's a lot of benefits to all of this. I mean, we're talking about economic security, right? We're talking, or sovereignty, like I believe Steph said, right? I guess the first time I heard that term. The opportunity for intergenerational socializing is tremendous. And also, a lot of my experience in this an urban environment is, through my graduate program in Cleveland, like 13 years ago, where it's often these kinds of projects were used as a way to build community relations, to try to prevent violence, and also to improve the health of the communities as well. So there really is a lot to this, and this does have tremendous, and I would say it has return on its value. I think that if we're seeing a better health and food security of our students and their families, I think that's going to have a long-term adds to the sustainability of our district and our student body. So I just want to thank you for all your work, and Ms. Seiner as well, for everything that you've been doing for all these years. I don't think we're gonna let it go off to the sunset. I think we're gonna let it go to the sunrise and keep growing. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. It's all worth it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to adjust the agenda here just a little bit. Mr. Crucial, Brian, you have a presentation that will do the audit presentation. Don, if you could pull that up.
All right. Thank you. Hello, my name is Brian Crucial. I'm the partner from Zellenkoski Axelrod on the audit engagement. This is for the year end June 30th, 2024. So just a brief overview of what we're going to go over tonight. Introduction, our responsibilities, our approach, the results, any other required communications with you guys. So the introduction here, like I said, I'm Brian Crucial. I'm the partner on the engagement. So Brian's first year through with us, so he probably dealt with Megan, Ben, and Holly a lot. They were the ones on site, so that's our manager, our senior, our staff. A lot of change from last year to this year. Obviously, Brian's first time through a new accounting system. Brian kind of jumping on a moving train here, pretty much during audit time. So that's why we're here today. But I'm happy to report through all that. We didn't have any issues as far as material audit adjustments or anything. Brian did get everything reconciled for us. Very responsive, everything we needed, we got. we're done with our field work. We're done with our single audit test work. We're done with everything. Everything's ready to be issued. So I don't know if everyone has had copies of the drafts of the reports or anything or not, but those are not final yet. So if you do have any tweaks, any questions, any comments for them, get them to us. We'll be finalizing everything over the next week or so. We're going to submit it to, we submit it to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse for your federal awards, and then we also submit it to the Pennsylvania State Bureau of Audits. So we take care of that once it's all final. So if you do have anything over the next few days, week, get it please to Brian and he can get it to us. And if you have any questions, just let us know too. If there's any questions, if you don't, I don't know if you have them with you tonight. We'll get to those at the end if you do. But if not, if you any
Brian,
questions come
if
up.
I can interrupt, the board does not have those yet, so Brian will get those to me and I will get that out to the board as soon as possible.
Perfect. So yeah, once you go through then, please just reach out if there's any questions, comments, or concerns. Just getting through the presentation tonight. So these are our required communications with you guys at the end of each audit. So our responsibilities under an auditor plan and perform an audit to obtain reasonable rather than absolute assurance, assess the risk of material misstatement of the financial statements, perform appropriate procedures based on our risk assessment, evaluate the appropriateness of the accounting policies used, and then form and express an opinion about whether the financial statements are materially accurate. So your financial statements do have an unmodified opinion. We believe they are materially accurate. That's the best opinion you can get. That's the one you want. That's the one that your funders would have some questions for if you didn't get. So that's the one you do have. Our responsibilities also include performing an audit in accordance with government auditing standards. This is the Yellow Book compliance portion of the audit. You're triggered into that by the amount of federal awards you get. So you also have the single audit, which is the next part there, the uniform guidance. So that includes reporting on internal control over compliance related to major federal programs and compliance with federal statutes, regulations, and terms and conditions of those awards. For this year, the two major federal programs that we tested were Title I, so that's the Improving Education Grant through the Department of Education, and the Child Nutrition Cluster, so that's your cafeteria program, so the free and reduced lunch program. We had no programmatic findings, no issues with that testing either, so there's no problems with your compliance with federal awards. So that means at the end of the day, when you see your single audit report, you will be a low risk auditee because you haven't had single audit findings since for as long as I can remember. The programs have always been clean. They've always been well administered, good controls in place. Our audit approach, so we conducted our audit inconsistent with the planned scope and timing. The engagement team and others in our firm have complied with all relevant ethical requirements regarding our independence. So we're required to be independent of you. In order to eliminate the identified threats of independence associated with preparing the financial statements and the data collection form, we do have an engagement quality control review that's done by an independent partner in our firm that was not part of the engagement. So that does go through a second set of eyes, not just me, before issuance. The following key areas that we looked at were basically assess significant risks or estimates. SAS 145 was new for this year, so that doesn't really pertain to anything in the district. It's part of what we have to do. So that basically said that every significant estimate is a specified risk for an audit area. So your significant estimates are basically your capital assets, your pension liability, your OPEB liability. That's really the only significant estimates you have. The pension and OPEB, that's actuarially determined. So the specialist for PESers handles that, and for your district-specific retiree health insurance plan, those were all actuarially determined. So we rely on that actuary report for those numbers, and then we test the census data given to them to make sure that they're given reliable information. Your significant accounting policies, as always, are in Note 1 of the financial statement. There's been no significant changes in policies or their application for this year. There's no big new accounting standards that affected you guys in 2024 as well. So I know a lot of years we have to come up and explain something that changed in the financial statements that probably most people don't really care about because us accountants like giving ourselves extra work to do and job security. We don't have to do that this year, so that's good. So if you look at last year's financial statements, you look at this year's financial statements, they'll be very similar. which is not always the case. Like I said earlier, the significant accounting estimates, your valuation of pension and OPEB liabilities, and useful life of the fixed assets and the depreciation on those. Significant accounting disclosures, your most significant ones, because they're the most significant liabilities to the district outside of your general obligation debt, are the pension disclosures, which is note 7, the other post-employment benefits, which is note 6, and then the other long-term liabilities, so note 5 and note 9. Those are just the debt. For purposes of this presentation, we have no significant unusual transactions to report. We didn't note any uncorrected misstatements that are included in your financial statements, meaning if we didn't identify any that we needed corrected anyway, Brian took care of all those, but we don't have any that we said, okay, these are small, but they are a misstatement. We don't have any of those, which we would be required to communicate to you as well. Internal control matters. We are required to report any issues we have with your internal controls, any issues we found with following your internal controls. We didn't find any of those during our test work over disbursements, receipts, payroll, internal controls over federal programs. Some other required communications, we didn't encounter any significant difficulties in dealing with management during the audit, no non-compliance with laws or regulations, any known or suspected fraud during the audit. The last slide, we go over some operating results. Your general fund balance, you'll see when you get your report, an increase of about 9.5 million from 23 to 24. For reference, you had an increase of about 1 million in 22-23. The big portion of that is much less capital expenditures. So capital spending was down in 2024 as opposed to the prior year. Your revenues were kind of similar in total. Your federal revenues were down significantly, about 8 million. That's mostly due to ESSER. ESSER was always going away, so that was what happened from 23 to 24. It was just much less. You did have a big pickup in state subsidies that made up for that difference. So in total, your revenues were up. Your local revenues, which is your real estate taxes, your transfer taxes, they're pretty consistent from year to year. So there wasn't a lot of change there. There wasn't a tax increase or anything. Your unassigned fund balance at the end of the year is 31.8 million. So that's about 13% of general fund expenditures. That's pretty much where you want to be. The 10 to 15% range is probably where you want to at least maintain that. Because your expenditures did go down in total from 23 to 24, mostly due to capital. The instruction, the other expenditures, the support services, they're up over the prior year, and they're pretty much up every prior year for every school district. So that's always just something to keep in mind to keep that fund balance in that range, just for basically rainy day, and the bond rating agencies like to see that. But other than that, I guess, is there any questions on anything I went over? And then, like I said, once you get a copy of the draft report, please just go through it. And if you do have any questions, please reach out to us. I can set up a Zoom. I can do whatever you need to go over any questions you would have on that.
Any questions from anybody?
I just have one, Dr. Brenneman. This time frame of this being available to us in March, is that typical? We always seem to be in kind of a rush because of the, having to set the taxes and such.
No, normally we're here. Normally the report is issued by year end.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's just delayed a little bit this year with the changeover, and one, not only Brian being new, but also the accounting system was changed over last year too.
So the target would be December.
Yeah, there was some significant amount of cleanup that needed to be done when Brian came on board, so that took some additional time to do that, coupled with the transition to the new accounting system. So it did cause these delays this year, which again is not typical for us.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about next January, but the January after that, our whiz kid's gone, our whiz kid Brian, so that will be the one we'll be concerned about.
And if I could just weigh in quickly too, as Brian pointed out, we had a $9.5 million surplus this year. When we presented with the budget back in last spring, we were projecting a $2.6 million deficit, and that was with a $34 million transfer to capital projects. So this is coming in significantly better than what we projected, and really is laying the foundation, I think, for the board to consider a tax freeze for this upcoming year. So again, really good news for us. We're working, or Brian and his team are really working on the budget process now. We're all set to present to you the preliminary budget in April, and that will be followed by the presentation by PFM on the projections and some recommendations on what we can or can't do with the tax increase.
And that large variance, would that be the result of the additional funds we received from the state that we didn't use? Good.
Any other questions? I just have an unserious rhetorical one. Is if all the financial experts are named Brian, how do you tell each other about it? So, anyways, thank you for
I was happy to see Brian hired another Brian.
There you go. I'm sure it's some kind of
It's a
scheme
close-knit
or something that's
community.
going on. Yeah, there's probably a club or an association we're not aware of. Thank you, Brian, for your presentation. Next, we have Mr. Persnecki, who's going to present on the school lunch program.
Thank you very much. Along with me, I have Jenny Patterson from Metz. Metz is our food service management company for the district. We signed a 5-year contract with them last year, so they're finishing up year number 1 right now. When we look at Metz and the contract with the Erie School District, we cover there's 24 different locations and 184 Metz team members around the district. So what does Metz do? They provide breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner for our students. They manage the fruit and vegetable grant for the district. There's about 10 schools that participate in that. They do catering, nutrition education. If you remember, some of you are aware that Metz has a nutritionist on staff that the district can reach out to for different things. They handle stadium concessions at Vet Stadium. We've done cooking classes for kids after school at after-school programs and their families, and different other community engagement projects. So what makes up a lunch? Of course, you have your entree. Students get their choice of 2 fruits, 2 vegetables, their choice of milk, and the milk can be sometimes they'll do a strawberry milk, a white milk, skim milk, or chocolate milk. So when you look at a typical menu for our students, you can see as the students get older and get into middle school and high school, they get more choices every day. But just an average elementary student, there's an entree that they can choose: peanut butter and jelly, turkey salad, vegetarian salad, string cheese, or turkey sandwich. And then when you go to the middle school level, we add assorted subs, hummus plate, chicken patties, or fresh pizza. And then when you go to the high school, a few more options, including grab-and-go sandwiches and specialty theme bars that Metz comes up with throughout the year. One of the other things that we've been fortunate to add this year is students that follow the halal diet. We've been able to add 2 halal meats to their choices, which are pepperoni and deli turkey that meet the halal requirements. So how many meals do we serve a day? On average, we serve just over 7,000 breakfasts per day and almost 9,100 lunches per day in our district. Overall, about 1.3 meals year to date. When we look at our averages, those are slightly up from last year, although our total meals is down a little bit because of the snow days and cold weather days that we had earlier this year. One of the other things that we were successful at doing this year is that we filed a waiver with the National School Lunch Program to send meals home for students that are fasting during Ramadan. There was over 400 students and families that signed up for this. This was our first go-through with this. It was a bit of a challenge to come up with shelf-stable items that the students could take home, and we wouldn't have to worry about items spoiling or anything like that. But this is the first go-around with that, and so far, you know, the reception that we've gotten has been very positive with this. So what's next? METS is continuing to work with the District Wellness Committee, as Caitlin said, trying to make sure, come up with different ways that we can move kids through the lunch lines in 20 minutes quickly so that they have 20 minutes to eat their lunch. At times, as you can see, it's a little bit difficult when they have all those different choices. If you can imagine a third grader going through a lunch line trying to decide if they want pizza or peanut butter and jelly or a sandwich. METS is also working with the Wellness Committee to talk about smart snacks food initiatives outside the cafeterias. So, like mentioned earlier with our schools, what are the teachers giving the students for positive rewards? What are parents bringing in for snacks on birthdays? Those types of things. We want to make sure our kids are eating healthy. And we're continuing to upgrade our technologies. We recently purchased a Temp Pal system that will alert Jenny and her team at any hour of the day when we have an equipment failure in a refrigerator or a cooling unit, so we don't lose precious food that's in that unit. These are just some pictures of the Jubilee that took place a couple weeks ago. METS catered that. And does anybody have any questions?
Ms. Devlin?
Dr. Brenneman, thank you. Do you guys do any food rescue stuff, Jenny? Like with the food that is unused at the end of the day or at the end of the week? Are we participating in anything like that?
That's a great question. So in some of our schools, we have share tables during the day. Not many of our schools have them. At one point, every school had them, but then the state took them away for a while. So we are reintroducing share tables in the schools where if there's a student that's still hungry, they can come up and get something extra that another student didn't want. They are very specific, though. There's health department guidelines that we need to follow to make sure that's properly handled, where it's just not kids passing items. As far as end of day, we try and limit our waste as a whole. We're looking for ways we can reduce waste. When you're shipping from the Culinary Center to many schools multiple times throughout the day, unfortunately, there is more waste than if we had kitchens in every school. The majority of our donations that go out into the community typically follow along the break period. So if we notice our milk is going to go out, we have a relationship with the food bank, with some different community centers downtown where we donate either produce or milk or things that are going to go to waste. But from the average daily during the school year, it's either the food has been timed out where it needs to be disposed of, or it's savable where we can use it for the next day where it hasn't been touched.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Shreve?
I don't have a question, but I visited the culinary. I already know the work they do is amazing. I encourage people to go see it. And we were just talking about, because there's a lot of community members, especially with the New Americans, people reaching out, and kids, the younger age, couldn't differentiate. Like, for example, from pork items, I'm glad that they did incorporate the pepperoni because my kids eat that, and now that they don't have to worry about the pizza part and the turkey. And I'm hoping one of the things that we discussed was the hot dogs, and hopefully one day that we'll get there, that we'll either have a kosher hot dog or halal hot dog. Then because the worry is the elementary kids, they can't really, especially the ones that come in that don't speak English, and they're going in line and just grabbing what their friends are grabbing. But they're doing very excellent work, and so it was nice visiting the facility and walking through.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I do want to note that, having as complicated dietary constraints that I have, that the folks at METS, they've made it easier than any place I've ever, even when places I'm paying a lot of money to be at. So just, really stellar at that. Also, I just want to make note to folks before we go on to the next subject. You know, I'm feeling really good right now because as somebody who's so focused on governance and process, because a year ago that, Brian and I started building off of what Ms. Devlin had as far as a year calendar ahead of what topics are going to be. And last year we began with the thematic ones, what are the themes of the month that we're going with. But we were also really crunched with time last year because of all the things that we had going on. And now if we have a little bit of breathing room, and we've got time to talk food all day long. So really looking forward to the rest of the year about how that builds out. So that takes us to the snow days, correct? Okay, so Mr. Polito, snow days.
Yeah, if the board will recall, last month we did present a proposal to basically use 4 flexible instruction days to make up the snow days we had during this year. After the meeting, Dr. Brenneman called me. He had a number of questions about why we chose to use flexible instruction days. Did we need to use 4 additional days, and was it wise to use those on Act 80 days? So as we talked through it, he felt it would be a good idea for this month for us to present the reasoning behind why we made that presentation, and also provide the school board with some additional options to consider. We did pull that from the agenda last month, so we're hoping tonight that we will be able to come to a consensus and get that on the agenda next month, because every month we delay, there's less options for us as far as trying to make those days up. So Ms. Umagala, do you want to walk through that for us?
At your places, there should be a handout that it says EPS 2024-25. What you'll see in the first table is the level of each school, the requirements per the Pennsylvania Department of Education, the hour requirement, the original hours if we did not have to cancel any school days, and the actual hours due to those school cancellations. Just an asterisk there by the requirements per PDE. It's 900 hours for elementary school, 990 hours for secondary schools, or 180 days. We use the hourly requirement. The consideration for makeup days, the table underneath that, option 1 is the option that we presented to the board last month, utilizing flexible instruction days on February 17th, March 28th, May 20th, and June 9th. We did discuss 2 other options before we brought option number 1 to the board. The option number 2 was to utilize days at the end of the year, June 9th through June 12th. Concerns with option 2 is that families had already planned for beginning of the summer, perhaps had vacations scheduled, and we might run into some absentee issues. The other point that the team brought up was students participating in summer programming would only have 1 day off before they were expected to be back in session. Option number 3 would be adding those days to Easter break, April 7th through April 10th. Concerns with that is teachers and staff could have planned time off as well as families and their students. Just a reminder for option 1 that for flexible instruction days, students complete work asynchronously. We were scheduled with PD on that day. We had consultants coming in for science, for example, for February 17th. March 28th, we do have PSSA training. May 20th is an election day, so we can't have kids in the building, which is why we chose flexible instruction and then at the end of the year. I do know that there was concern as to whether teachers could be available to students if they had any questions by email or by phone call. I do want to let the board know that teachers and staff have an hour and a half for lunch and plan. And for those agenda days on the professional development, we built in at least another 40 minutes for teachers and staff to have to respond to any student questions or concerns. Obviously, we don't have the option for February 17th anymore. We could add June 10th if we wanted to go the flexible instruction day route. Otherwise, the other 2 options would be the end of the year or Easter break.
And if I may, just to clarify the questions and concerns I had with Brian. So I know I don't teach at the K-12 level. Just having been an educator for 10 years and teach at university and have taught courses with high school students. And having both as a social worker and, even a soldier before then, the impact of professional development and the meaning behind that. I know that the district has emphasized professional development as something that is essential for our curriculum implementation, and that also that we have put additional emphasis on the quality of education that our children are receiving. And so my concern is that that when you have both, even being that there is time, that the experience would vary depending on whether you're teaching elementary, middle, or high, but also that for an educator or for anybody really, just to be able to have to switch your mindset in the middle of the day when you're doing professional development, when you're doing the training. And I felt like it seemed like it was sending a message that was watering it down, either of them. And so in my mind, I think since the option was already, I believe, June 9th for the flexible, adding a couple of extra days at the end, I feel is one that shows that that we're committed to professional development, that we are committed to the quality of education. I know asynchronous learning. I teach asynchronous learning. I know it's different. Younger students, of course, may need more assistance and supports than older ones. So that's why I brought it up. Of course, it's up to the consensus of the board of however you feel fit.
Did we already use February 17th under this?
We did not, because the board did not adopt it at that time, so it would have to be at a different day.
Dr. Brenneman?
Yeah, Ms.
First,
Devlin.
I didn't know that we pulled it because I had confusion in my own house because I told my son he had to log on and he was being told by his teachers he didn't have to. So I wasn't aware. Maybe I missed that. I feel that these snow days were, obviously very rare. I won't go into what I feel is to blame for the poor issue with the snow removal, but it happened to our students. It wasn't their fault. I don't love it, but it happened, and I think we have to deal with it now. I hate the idea of adding on days at the end of the year, and I understand your point, Dr. Brenneman, about respecting PD. We do. I think we're sending that message. This was just a very, very unique situation that now we have to deal with. So I really don't like the idea of adding days at the end.
Mr. Harkins.
Well, I didn't ask to be heard, but I guess I'm still leaning towards option one if you're asking.
Ms. Gillespie.
Would this go against any of the contracts to add either option 2 or 3 with the teachers union?
No.
Like, for example, option 3, if families are already planning to take time off, because if you decided to do that, a lot of people are going to take the time off anyways. So it seemed like option 3 is not conducive.
Not a real option.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
Yeah. Go whatever with the majority.
I like option one.
I also have some concerns about adding on June 9th through the 12th. Again, I understand the concerns with option 1, but I'm worried, again, with what Ms. Devlin and Ms. Zumagala said as far as plans that may have already been happening, and if students will show up that week.
Yeah, to your point about showing up, I asked the same thing about asynchronous as well. I mean, are they going to, or is that the same thing going to happen, right? So that was my question, concern. Was there any other concerns that was raised about this, or is there general consensus amongst the teachers or building principals? I guess I don't know how it looks inside of a building, but
I'm sorry, concerns?
was there general consensus that option 1 is good? I mean, as far as like teachers and others?
From what I've heard, yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? So just to clarify, so on these days, the flexible instruction days, when they, which of these days are flexible instruction days?
We would have to, for option number 1, we would have to shift them. Obviously, we can't go back to February 17th, but March 28th, May 20th, June 9th, June 10th.
So those become flexible instruction days, and we're still doing PDE on some or all of those days?
We do need to do PD on March 28th because of the PSSA testing, but we certainly could look at making sure teachers and staff had some extra time on the 20th, the 9th, and the 10th.
I could weigh in real quickly too. This also gave us an opportunity to really look at the effectiveness of the flexible instruction days. We looked at the number of emails that were exchanged between students and teachers, and also the activity on Schoology. And from what we're seeing, we don't see that those flexible instruction days are very effective, very much like when we had asynchronous learning during the pandemic. Obviously, as Ms. Devlin said, this is an exception this year, and so we were looking at that as a compromise. When you see the calendar for the upcoming school year, we did build in snow days again so that we would only be able to have to use flexible instruction days as a last resort, because again, we feel that we should have our kids in front of us in the classroom as much as possible.
I appreciate that, Brian. I also just want to, again, raise a concern for me, again, as an educator. I think when to me and as a parent, I think more than anything, that if there isn't a lot of communication going back and forth on those days, it raises a concern to me that there's any value to it. There's any value to what's going on in the schools with the flexible instruction. I guess if there isn't a whole lot of communication, and it just raises a lot of questions and concerns for me. As far as the quality of that, but also with the professional development. But I'll leave it up. The board made its decision, and so I appreciate everybody's weighing in. And if there's any other questions or comments,
Well, your concerns are valid, but I still think of the imperfection of each choice. I'll stay with option 1 and support that.
all right. Thank you, Mr. Harkins. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have board policy review committee. Angie, you have a report?
Thank
Ms.
you,
Anna
Dr.
Tangelo?
Urban. So the policy committee met this past Monday on March 3rd at 1 o'clock. We met here in the boardroom at 1910 Sassafras. You'll see below, we do have our list of policies. We were able to discuss and go over everything with our solicitors and the staff. So just to kind of review the policies very briefly, you'll note that every policy review was just a revision or a minor change. The majority of this language that was changed is statutorily required or required by law. For example, if you look at, let's see here, policy 823, the change there, they're just, rather than using brand names of the drugs, they are now using kind of a broad base of naming the drugs. So that would be the opioid antagonist. We are planning tentatively to meet next on March 31st, but that is tentative, so I will follow up with everyone. At this time, did anybody have any questions about the policies for next week? If you do want to review them, they're obviously on board docs, or you can contact the secretary's office and get a hard copy, or feel free to reach out to me.
Dr. Brenneman?
Yeah, Ms. Devlin.
Can you explain the responsible contracting change?
Yeah, I'll actually ask Mr. Watker if he wants to, so I don't mess up the legalese of it all. Fair.
It was to create an exception to the requirement for asbestos abatement, as there are no asbestos abatement contractors which have Class A apprenticeship programs. So we've been finding that no one has been able to fulfill that. And that's not necessarily just an Erie thing, but we believe that to be more of an industry issue.
We did that for some other
We had-
subcontract, didn't we? Like
we
for
had
windows
passed-
or something?
Yeah, we had done glaziers or
Okay.
something, but we had done those on a case by case basis. We had passed a resolution at one time eliminating for emergency contracts and the like. This is just to make sure that we get it into the policy, so we don't have to find it again.
Just for asbestos here.
Just
abatement.
for asbestos
Great.
abatement.
Anyone else? I just want to say I love this report. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, this report is fantastic. It's great. Okay, next we have the draft agenda. I would note that as you're looking at the draft agenda, that Ms. Cooley, who could not be here today, she provided me with a copy of the preliminary budget for the IU5 that'll go on under her report next week. It'll be added to the agenda then, but it's available if anybody wants to see. Of course, she's our appointee to the IU5 board, so I just want to make that aware. But please take a look at the draft agenda. And if you have questions or comments, go ahead and raise them now.
Dr. Brennan?
Go ahead.
I have a question for Ms. Zumagala on the test scores we get every year. It's always frustrating that it's pointed out that because of the division of the students, I think the three main categories are English as a second language, special education, and then other students. We can't compare school to school because each school has a different component of those three classes of students. Can we break out by school by those three categories? Because I think that would be useful. And then it would enable us to compare ourselves, let's say, to, I mean, we've often used, or it's been mentioned, Allentown is of similar size to Erie and similar economic circumstances, but Allentown is hundreds of miles away. Mill Creek's right next door. That's the one we need to be comparing ourselves to, and I know they have a much higher income out there, but if we were able to break our students out by the three categories and evaluate them by school, in other words, we could say, you know, Lincoln is better than Harding as to regular students, this and that, it might help us all understand this better, but.
By the subgroups, you mean?
Yes, and the second question, which is along the same line there, is do we know which of our students have had pre-K and how they have performed relative to the other children?
Yes, we can include that in that report.
Because I would like to know if those children, as nationwide they seem to say that if they are performing better, which would give us a gauge on the efficacy of the existing programs, because with our additional funding that's available, it might be something where, you know, we could consider universal pre-K. I've talked about this on a preliminary basis. I know we have space issues and such as that, but, you know, we're all concentrating on these test scores, and I just think it would clarify it if each school was broken out by the three classes of students, and I think we get better information that way.
I might weigh in quickly. Mr. Nichols, I just also want to make sure that I point out that the biggest contributing factor to student achievement is poverty. And that is one of the main reasons why we don't compare ourselves to other school districts in this area, because our poverty is significantly higher than the other school districts, and it makes more sense to compare ourselves to peer school districts that have a similar poverty level. It's also the reason why the fair funding formula significantly weighs funding more towards school districts like ours with the higher poverty, because we need additional resources to start to level that playing field, which we've been starting to do over the last couple of years as we've received additional funding, but that is still a work in process. So I would suggest, and I'm not going to be here the next time test scores come out, but I think poverty, if you're going to compare to surrounding schools, you really need to take that into consideration when you're comparing us to Mill Creek or Fairview or Harbor Creek, any of those schools, because
I understand
it's
that,
big impact.
But that's the market here, and we want our children to perform as well as they do, and we certainly have that at collegiate, for example. You know, that competes countywide. That's one school we have that competes countywide.
Any separations or any other questions or comments regarding the draft agenda?
Anything
Go ahead,
we-
Mr. Harkins.
Anything we'd find interesting in the change orders now?
I was waiting for you, John.
That's what I asked.
Not really. The first one is for additional electrical work that needed to take place here. There were things that we noticed when they were doing the work that we wanted to add. So more receptacles in this place, some more key access, the key fobs in other locations. The next one down is actually a deduct to the HVAC contract for RAVE at Erie High. The board had previously approved a couple of change orders and the work came in better, so it cost less than what they had originally anticipated, so district's getting some money back on that one. 705 and 707 are both time extensions to the contracts with RAVE and NUCO in anticipation of the air conditioning that's going to be put into the south side of Erie High. We're giving both contractors a little bit more leeway and a little bit more time in case there's some delays in getting the equipment. And then the last one, 706, is additional steel reinforcements. When Thomas went and tore out the set of stairs that lead from the pool to the gymnasium, we found that all of the steel reinforcements that were there were completely rotted, and so we need to get additional steel to repair those steps.
Thanks, Neil.
And to keep with you, Mr. Brockman, I had a question. So we know that the Edison ribbon cutting, essentially when it'll be done, has been pushed back or likely to be pushed back. But we got the furniture. Where's that gonna go, and is it gonna be safe, I guess?
So thankfully, the furniture vendor will hold on to it as long as they need to. Actually, the furniture for this building sat in a warehouse here in Erie for about 2 months before we were able to move it in. I'm working with the furniture vendor and the contractors because the way that the building is being completed, we'll have a loading dock and all the asphalt done. So they will be able to actually start offloading the furniture into the classrooms so that we can populate those. And then as the contractors finish the office area, because that's the last part of the building that'll be completed, they can come back and install all the furniture into that space once it's completed.
Any other questions, separations, notes? Any other matter?
Dr. Brenneman?
Ms. Devlin?
I have a question for Mr. Brockman, although I see Mr. Orlando here too. I got a text today from a community member that there was vandalism in the new bathroom over at Boletnikoff Field, and just wondered what happened there, if it was left unlocked or somebody broke in, and how we're going to go about dealing with that.
So we noticed it yesterday. I had somebody go because track season's starting, and so I needed heat in the concession stand in order to turn the water back on. And when the HVAC contractor arrived there, he found that the door was, in fact, left unlocked. So we are in the process of fixing the bathroom. That is step one. Step two is I am having all of the cores removed and getting them rekeyed so that there's only a single key that will get into there, and I will make sure that I know exactly who has the key.
This person also said that they thought the pipes had frozen and burst, but that doesn't sound like that happened. Great.
We turned the water
Water was off.
We do know that there was a pre-existing issue with one of the water pipes that the plumbing contractor that did the work is coming back this week to fix.
Thank you.
Anything else from anybody? Mr. Harkins?
A month ago, I think we were told that the work was delayed at Edison because of the weather. Is there anything to report on that? Are we back in business, or is it still too soon to?
I actually got the progress schedule today. They're still showing early November completion date for that section. This week definitely did help. I'm hopeful that we might be able to pick up 1 or 2 weeks, but I know it won't be by the start of the school year, in which case we'll have to start working with the families and the school to create a natural break for the transition from the old building to the new building.
Thanks, Neil. One other thing with the matter that Daria brought up, should we or can we or do we have any interest in cameras on?
There are cameras throughout that entire complex.
Okay.
The issue is that I don't know when the students or individuals, because I don't know who it was, I don't know when the individuals got into the space to cause the vandalism. I also don't know the last time somebody was there and forgot to lock the door. So it could have been 3 months ago, it could have been 3 days ago.
But wouldn't the cameras tell us?
The camera system only goes back 1 month, as far as I believe, and people who are smarter than me in that back room can tell me if I'm wrong. Okay, so about 1 month so it would be a matter of having somebody sit there and watch one camera for the last month to see if We know who the perpetrators were, and potentially when that door was left unlocked. I hate to say it, but there's a good chance that it was unlocked all winter.
I remember late last summer when the work was still being done there, I checked on it and it was unlocked.
What kind of vandalism was it? Was it just tagged, or were fixtures broken, or?
It tagged, paper towel dispenser ripped off the wall, soap dispenser ripped off the wall, and the mirror in the bathroom was broken. It is very unfortunate. We'll make it right, and we'll fix it so it doesn't happen again.
Any other items? I want to make note that if you did not appoint or reappoint somebody to the Athletics Facilities Commission in August, September, that you are due for an appointment or reappointment now. So the terms for the 5 members, mine included, do expire in April. I am asking, like we did in the fall, I am asking that the board secretary's office advertises the openings that are available. You don't have to choose anybody who submits their interest, but it is available to choose. I'm going to need to do that myself, so I'm really looking forward to that. I am meeting with Ms. Feeney soon, and I've spoken with Mr. Wachter and Ms. Jones too. My thoughts were, because we've been so busy, and especially Attorney Wachter's office has been extremely busy, and this board secretary's office, that the changes to the existing resolution, the existing makeup of the AFC, that would wait until after we have appointed folks for this round. But you can anticipate my recommendations for revising that after I meet with Ms. Feeney and after I have a chance to talk at length with Attorney Wachter on that. So just expect that in May. But just for those, if you did not appoint somebody in September, your appointment's up now. Go ahead, Mr. Harkins.
Can Alyssa send us a list of who that
Yes.
is and who the vacating members of the commission are?
Yeah, and yes, you will. And I think I don't remember how many we got we got quite a few in September when we advertised it. I think we had, even though we had a shorter time window from when we advertised compared to what we do now, we had quite a few. So my guess is that some of those folks, it might be worth, Ms. Cook, it might be worth that, we send a communicate out to them that the opportunity is open again, for them to apply.
Thanks.
But if you do have somebody in mind at any point, whether or not you look at the list of those who submit their interest, you can always just give that information to the board secretary's office, and it's your choice, it's your pick. That person will go on that. Any other items? Okay, we will be moving into executive session for personnel and legal matters. Go ahead, Mr. Sharif.
This has nothing to do with the agenda, but
Okay.
because I know I just want to,
Well, then you're out of order, Mr. Sharif. Go ahead.
because before, then we're going to adjourn after executive session, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So just on March 1st started Ramadan. So a lot of people ask me, and just wanted to, some terms that people use, Ramadan Kareem, which generally means generous Ramadan, or Ramadan Mubarak means blessed Ramadan. And something that Ramadan is the 9th month of the Islamic lunar calendar and considered one of the holiest months for Muslim around the world. And it is time for a spiritual reflection, increased devotion, prayer, and community. During Ramadan, Muslim fast, dawn until sunset. I just broke my fast around 6:16 here. So really a lot of things. I appreciate the school district allowing kids, giving them space in the schools. But something I've learned, some principals tell me some kids take advantage of that. I was able to visit Strong Vincent and talk to 3 different lunches about the students, how, Ramadan is time of reflection, empathy, compassion, and community, family, and just talking to younger ones, because some of them would tell certain principals, oh yeah, we prayed this long or whatever. So just having that conversation with the kids, and So I really appreciate it. I just wanted to discuss and wish everybody who's celebrating Ramadan a happy Ramadan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharif. Anybody else? Okay, we will be concluding the public portion of this meeting and be moving into executive session again for legal and personnel matters. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.